Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Conquering Geek Culture. I'm Chris Hana, CEO and founder of the Esports Observer. And today I'm joined by Johnathan Wendel, who you most likely will know if you know him under the name of FATAL1TY. Thanks for making time, man.
No, thanks for having me, man. I was watching some of your previous podcasts and so forth, and wanted to chime at your ear a little bit. So, and then you asked me to be on the show, so here I am.
See, that's how easy it can be. How's life, man?
It's been great, man. I've obviously the last 3 years been working on ReadyUp. So, obviously doing a startup and so forth, but, life in general has been very, very adventurous, making a living, playing video games, traveling the world, and just living this life of being an esports player. It's really a fascinating life.
I have a billion questions for you. And so I sometimes start off with a confession, and I'm not sure if you remember that we met in Oakland with Mark Donovan. I do. And why do I do? Because I think you're a year older than me, and I fanboyed you so hard back in the days, when you did all the professional stuff. And I remember we met in Oakland. I think we were drinking, and I sent a picture to a friend, all right? And he's like, no shit, is this happening? Are you drinking with FATAL1TY? And I'm like, yes, I am. So that was, that's something, you can't take that away from me. I still laugh at this. No, man, but and I think I really want to go way back, because I think you started going professional in what, 99?
I started playing in tournaments back as early as 1993, 94, when I played in the blockbuster tournaments back in the day. But that was kind of my first glimpse of okay, you can practice and be good at a video game. And then obviously when Quake 1 came out, the internet came out, I started playing tournaments all around the Midwest. And then in 1999, some friends told me about I can make money doing this. And that sparked the whole interest, what? I can really make a living. So, yeah.
How was the time? How did you get into all of this? And what was it back in the days?
Well, I think back in the days, when I was a young kid, I played a lot of sports. My dad at a very young age bought a Nintendo NES. We played Mario Brothers and Atari Warriors. Atari Warriors was this third-person shooter game that you blow up tanks and get in tanks and so forth, throw grenades. And I really liked that game. That game was 1986, 87. I don't know. It was so long ago. And I used to play Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we had a computer at my house when I was a young kid. My dad was very interested in those kind of things. And so, I just kind of, I enjoyed flying the plane underneath the Golden Gate Bridge and just doing stupid stuff in the games. I love the experimenting, and can you really fly under it? Is it really hard? And then you crash, but yeah, I just always loved that kind of, I always loved playing video games when the weather was bad outside, typically. When it would snow in the winter, we'd play Nintendo but yeah, I spent a lot of time outside as well. So, but yeah, I think that was kind of my life as growing up as a kid. And as a teenager, I obviously, Blockbuster was holding that tournament, and for, I think it was NBA Jam and Clay Fighter and Sonic Hedgehog 3 or something. It was so long ago, but I remember NBA Jam Pacific because I took first in my city for NBA Jam. And, that kind of sparked my interest, oh, you can practice and be really good at video games. And it was just for fun. It was just kind of it's bragging rights back then. Being good at video games was just bragging rights. Going to the arcade, playing Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is obviously where I got my name from, FATAL1TY. I just loved, picking the name FATAL1TY was kind of interesting point in my life too, is, when you're playing competition in anything, you want to do something spectacle, something amazing. In baseball, you think of bases loaded, hitting a grand slam in the ninth inning. In the football game, Hail Mary, And so for me, FATAL1TY was that Hail Mary, that bottom of the ninth kind of metaphor, however you want to say it. And I just really kind of cling to FATAL1TY as my nickname at a very young age. I think I was 11 or 12 years old when I picked my nickname. And basically after that, I started playing online. Quake 1, the internet came out in 93, 94. I used to log on BBS before that. I was definitely interested in computers and dialing.
I love how you're saying the internet came out. So when we talk about the time, imagine it was that time really when stuff started to happen online. So that's way back in the days.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fascinating. I mean, obviously, log on to BBSs before the internet was really interesting. Everything being like ASCII symbol, like just like scrolling across the screen, like text and stuff. Uh, so I know how far we've came, uh, and I was just luckily I was very young when I was experiencing that, so I'm still young today in the overall scheme of things. But yeah, I definitely lived kind of the old classic internet life and the new internet life. I kind of like captured both of them with my career.
So funny, man. I remember when we were playing Half-Life in garages, we were meeting, with people, we were playing on LAN, right? So just in the network. And then, these people were telling me like, oh no, we play online. And, online you can play with like 16 people and 32 people. And I remember that, back in the days, it blew my mind. Like, well, you can play that game with like 16 people because you always got like what, 4, 5, 6 in one room. And,
Yeah, I mean,
just, boom, mind blown.
yeah, I remember showing it to my parents at the time. Like I was living at my mom's house at the time, and I had a Pentium, I think 166 megahertz, 32 gigabyte of RAM or something like that. It was like the real deal back then. And I remember my neighbors were so pissed off I had it. But we used to play Doom back in the day too, so I had like a little friendly rivalry with my neighbors. Um, but yeah, so I remember showing it to my parents, and I was like, you won't believe this! Like fragging this guy, like, like I'm killing him in the game, like with the rocket launcher, machine gun, or shotgun, or whatever. And like that guy's from New York, that guy's from California, that guy's from Germany, and then you get, you dive into all the nuances of how to get better at the game, and then you learn about latency, ping times. And then I became a hardware junkie. I started buying like every modem on the shelf and testing every modem against other modems to find out which one had the lowest ping. And
Wow.
it was so fascinating. I mean, I would literally be unplugging modems, plugging into a computer, testing, connecting to multiple different servers, writing down data, what my latency was. So I was super nuts about getting low ping rates back in the old days. And that's what kind of inspired me, like, as a kid going through high school and graduating high school, I thought I was going to be in IT, like either a programmer or work in IT and help internet be faster and lower latency. And that's what my passion was back then as a young kid. But yeah, but then it kind of, professional gaming came along. So
How did you get good back in the days? I mean, is it pure training? Today you get all the guides, you have more access to information, like you can ramp up knowledge faster, I'd almost say. Like, how was it back in the days? Like, how did you get better, really? Just training?
yeah, I mean, you just play against good players. If you see someone that has some skill online, like you literally are just like you're literally like auditioning. Like I go online and I'm playing a game, and this one guy has similar frags to me or close to me, or like he's like every time I fight him, it's a challenge. So then I would message him in the chat and I go, hey, like you're really good. We should play more together. Like, give me your contact information. Like I'd try to create a relationship with the person. So we joined IRC together. This was like the earlier version of Discord. And so IRC is where we all kind of hanged out at. I mean, it's basically where I built my community of people, my friends, and we had a channel that we were all into, and we all have like a plus sign next to our name, means like we're like, like we're kind of important in this community. And so yeah, we basically would talk in there, and that's how I kind of built up my skills at a young age. But yeah, I traveled to tournaments locally, and then I thought always training in person was the most beneficial for like excelling and getting better at the game. So, and I think even today, like, we're all online playing. Yes, it's great that we have all this at home and so forth, but I still think there's a human connection of being in the same room with your teammates, being hanging out with them, because when you're having lunch or having dinner, or you're just kind of hanging out and talking, you're talking deep thought and game theory about, there's just a lot more opportunity to talk in person to get better at the game. So, yeah, I mean, there's countless ways to get better, but yeah, I think going to tournaments, playing online tournaments as much as you can, going to physical tournaments, throwing LAN parties. I used to throw LAN parties all the time back in Kansas City. I'd have like 100 people show up to my LAN party. Used to do it all the time back in the late 90s, and it was a lot of fun.
So I don't want to go into semantics, right? Pro gaming, esports, light gaming, hardcore gaming, whatever it was. But if you look at it today, people know about it, right? It's more mainstream, of course, than it was back in the days. And you
Oh
said
yeah.
like, oh shit, your friends told you can make money with it. So you started making money with it. You kind of traveled the world. Like, but back in the days, like, how did you convince your parents even, or how did you, I mean, you were 18 plus, but how did you convince them that, hey, that's the right thing to do? You know, I'm don't gonna get like something else. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go all in on
Yeah,
this.
well, I would say that the parents never really agreed with my decisions. I think a lot of kids probably say that about their parents, but yeah. So I think, you know, obviously I went to tournaments all throughout the Midwest from 1996, 1999, like in Quake, and I won every tournament I entered. Uh, I won like a modem, cell phone, internet for a year kind of thing. And that's what I would win, right? Free internet and all these like little gadgets. So there's no money in this. Like there's no like, the only big money you'd ever hear about was like the only big thing you ever really heard about was like Thresh winning the Ferrari back in like 97. And he was like one of the first professional gamers, like, but like he was, because he won this Ferrari. It was like, whoa, you can win a Ferrari for playing video games? This is insane. So I wanted to go to that tournament at a young age, but there was no way my parents were going to let me go. Like I was trying to figure out, how am I going to beg my parents to let me go to the Ferrari tournament, like, because I had ambition to go there for sure. And all my friends, they knew how good I was and so forth. And it is what it is. Like there's limitations back, beginning of esports back then. But in 1999, I don't really have the glamorous story. Like the glamorous story is that I worked my ass off, to get it, and I sacrificed everything. So I moved out of my mom's house, moved with my dad. I trained for 3 months there at my dad's house. Even my dad was against my training regiment thing, but he understood I had to find out. Like my thing was that I had to go to find out if I even belonged, with the best players in the world, and my dad understood that, and I made a handshake deal with my dad and said, if I go to this tournament, I don't win any significant money, I'll just quit this hobby and I'll just move on with my career and kill that, So I ended up going to the tournament, and I think I walked away with like a little over $4,000. I won the qualifier and then took third in the main event, and basically walked with like $4,500 or so, which was a lot more in my bank account. I think I had $500 in my bank account, so I actually had money now, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, after that, I kind of knew the position I was in, because I was kind of a dark horse coming in the tournament, but everyone was talking about me. And this is 1999, October 31st is when we had that tournament. So it's been almost 21 years now. So I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I mean, it was so exhilarating, and kind of, getting in my truck or my SUV and driving down to Dallas, 8-hour car drive with my computer, my monitor, and all my stuff in the back. Arriving to the tournament city, Dallas, Texas. One of my good friends, Dan Hammond, he was a world champion Quake 2 player. He actually let me come and live with him for 2 weeks and train with him at his house. So I had a nice couch I could sleep on for 2 weeks. And basically we trained for 2 weeks leading up to the tournament. And then I obviously went to the tournament. I played very well. And then basically I got even more famous because of my demos that were getting released. People just were seeing my gameplay and how I played. I was very aggressive. Back then, everyone was playing like very slow and methodical, and I was like, no, I'm gonna go like in. Like I was very aggressive, and so that surprised a lot of people, and it was refreshing. A lot of people liked that gameplay from me. So about 2 weeks later, after that tournament, I had a company call me up, and they basically invited me to go to Sweden to represent USA. Obviously, I said yes. I was like, that was my dream. I remember talking to my dad about going to Sweden. So like, I told the company, I'm coming. I'm getting my passport. I'm going. So then I go up to my dad, and I'm like up in, upstairs, and I go, Dad, like, just so you know, in February, I'm going to Sweden. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. Like, I'm 18 years old. Right. So, I'm telling my dad I'm going to Sweden. Okay. And, I go, well, Dad, I am going, because like I was like, he already knows I moved out of my mom's house to play video games, and I'll move out of his house to go live on the street to play video games. Like it was like, I will find somewhere to live. I'll figure it out. I was definitely like, I had the mindset to figure it out, and if I had to work part-time to pay rent or whatever the deal was, I was gonna make it work to do what I really wanted to do. And that was kind of like the good story of all the chaos that was going on with my family saying no to me.
It's always about the good parts.
Yeah. So obviously, my I told my dad, and so I went downstairs. I remember my dad coming downstairs and kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Are you really going to Sweden?" I'm like, "Yes, Dad. This is the thing. Like, you can play video games, and companies will fly you to go play, and you can win money. Like, and he was just so excited. Kind of like just blown away. Like, because he's a very like Midwestern 9 to 5er lifestyle. Like, he had his fun back in the day too, of course, but like it wasn't like this where you're traveling to a different country, and especially traveling to Sweden as your first country that you ever traveled to overseas. Yeah, so obviously I went there, and it was really funny because I went there. I trained in Chicago. I went to a tournament in Chicago, trained there with a couple of my friends, and that they were also traveling with me to Sweden. There was basically the top 12 gamers in the world were flying to Sweden, and so we flew to Sweden, to Stockholm, and I ended up winning 18 games straight, losing 0. And so at that point, I was pretty much the de facto #1 guy, leading into the biggest tournament that Quake has basically ever seen, from like just the world coming to one location to find out who the best Quake player was. Yeah. And that was the CPL Summer that year in 2000, which was like $100,000 purse prize. Everyone was there, and 2 weeks or after I won the tournament in Sweden, I remember I walked up to one of the sponsors and I told him, like, "Hey, you should sponsor me." he said to me, "No, like, why would we sponsor you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm the best Quake player in the world." and so it's literally like, you imagine the doing the deal and the business was like literally like in 1 or 2 sentences. And then he was like, "Let me talk to the people and we'll see." Like, because I told him, I was like, "Wouldn't it be great if your event that you're throwing in the summer, that I win it? Like, wouldn't you want the guy who wins it to be wearing your shirt?" And so I sold it basically in 2 sentences. And then at the airport, I met him at the baggage claim, I think in Chicago, when we were flying back to the US. And he walked up to me while we're getting our bags, and he goes, "Yep, we're going to sponsor you." so, so that kind of led me on to being sponsored.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, right? If you think about it, how it went back then. So I wanna fast forward a little bit, because it's what you just said, right? So you got sponsored. If you look at a few years later, right? Well, a few years in quotes maybe, but so FATAL1TY, I mean, it's a brand, right? So you created, and I think you were the first person to really create a kind of business model around that, right? So you had your own gear, like you had partnerships, for like mouse pads, all kinds of equipment. Like, I remember like the sound cards, all that kind of stuff,
headphones, motherboards, everything.
So how did you do that, and what back in the days made you think so far ahead and say, like, I'm just gonna use my brand to do all that stuff? How did that happen?
Well, I think that was almost kind of, to me, it seems so simple. When I looked at the gaming market, you had all these people making gaming products, and they had no idea what they were making. I just watched them make stuff, and I'm like, "This is shit. This is shit. Like everything is crap." Because I was always looking for gear to use. I was always looking for the keyboard that would allow me to hit AS and spacebar at the same time. Like, back then, there was collision of keystrokes. Like, if you hit too many keys at once, the 4th key wouldn't work. There's a lot of like little details like this that people just didn't know. The people that made the device didn't know, and so people released these gaming keyboard. People were releasing things and calling it for whatever they were trying to do. They were trying to sell to gamers, and I just wasn't buying it. And so I was very methodical. I mean, I actually was, you can kind of see this kind of worn out one, but this is one of my first like FATAL1TY mouse pads. So back in the day, the mouse pads were tiny, squares or rectangles, right? Yeah. And I basically found this mouse pad, and it was actually a printer pad. So people used to buy this at CompUSA and put printers on it, right? And so I'm looking for, like, where's the gaming mouse pad? Like, and no one made big gaming mouse pads. It didn't exist in the market. And so I saw this printer pad, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like a nice piece of cloth." Like, it's like, "Oh, it's only, $10, $9." Okay. All right. So then, okay, I'm gonna try it out. And I start playing with it, and I start winning like crazy. Because like the thing with the bigger mouse pad, I can use a lower sensitivity and also keep my mouse on the device so I can track people for long shots and long, like if I'm in a shaft battle and shooting the lightning gun, like I can stay on them instead of like lifting up the mouse and then readjusting, then shooting again. So it's just like common sense to me back then in like 2000, like, 1999, 2000, that's when I started using it. So basically I started making big, I called up the company that made the printer pads. And this is kind of a funny story, actually. So I call up the printer pad company. This is in 2002, 2003. This is actually when I start Fatality brand. So I was just on MTV True Life. I'm a gamer. Just did my episode. And I knew that I needed to use this media to create something. I knew I had to do it because, my friends were telling me how popular my name was, Fatality. I mean, no one knew Johnathan Wendel. Like, they only knew Fatality. So I was like, how do I, Fatality gaming gear? Like, how do I create this brand, right? And so I called up the mousepad company and I said, hey, I'd like to make some mouse pads with you guys. And, the guy on the phone was like, well, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Johnathan Wendel, and I'm a world champion gamer. And I actually have a funny question for you, sir. Like, just out of curiosity, how's your sales been the last 3 years? Because I've been promoting him without getting paid for 3 years, right? I'm telling everyone in the world to go CompuSA, buy this printer pad. Everyone's buying it. Every Counter-Strike player is buying the printer pad. Every Quake player is buying the printer pad. Everyone's buying the printer pad. Okay. And so we created this massive market I created this massive market for the need of this large mouse pad, right? And so he says, well, it's really funny you ask. We've actually tripled in sales over the last 3 years. And then I said, you're welcome. so then we started talking about business, and he was like, hey, I'll give you a cut of all future sales that are over this many units per year, and so on and so on. I was like, yeah, at the hindsight, I should have took that deal and done and did my deal. But I I was so in the zone. I still had to compete and play and run a business. So I was spread kind of thin, where like if I want to be a world champion at the game, I still have to train like crazy. I don't have time to work with the business every second. So I had a window of opportunity to build the Fatality brand back then after the MTV True Life thing. And I launched the mouse pad. I was buying them for like $3 a piece or so, $3.25. And I was selling for $20. And so I'm making 5 or 10 grand a month selling mouse pads on fatality.com. So I was selling mouse pads like crazy. And that's kind of sparked my interest. Like, well, I can make more products now. Like, why can I make a keyboard? Why can I make headphones? Why can I make a motherboard, and so forth. Obviously, some things are more technical, like a motherboard. Like, I don't have, like, it's not a piece of cloth. It's a lot more in depth. So I started reaching out to different companies, and this one company made this backlit keyboard. And I predicted the backlit keyboard. I mean, like, I was like, this is a must for every gamer because we all play in the dark. And I can't see the F1 through F4 key for the life of me when I'm playing late at night. Just my monitor doesn't glare on it perfectly or whatever deal. So as being a part of this world and experiencing everything for the first time, and more so than others, because I'm playing 8, 12 hours a day, sometimes 16 hours a day, where I'm training and trying to be the best in the world. And I can see where there's like limitations of my ability. So I'm always trying to find, how do I get that extra 1%? How do I get the extra 2% by having the right product, having all these different things? So backlit keyboard is one of them. I found the company. They had history with Body Glove, if you know Body Glove, the wetsuit company. So they had branding expertise in that regard. And I was like, well, if I can get someone that worked for Body Glove to work for me, that's a pretty good step, because Body Glove's kind of a niche brand. Esports and gaming is kind of a niche brand. It might work out where they understand where there was roadblocks in the way and so forth. They've already lived it, so I don't have to learn it. So basically, I partnered with them. We did I think a 3 or 4 year deal to grant them my master license for Fatality brand, and then we started reaching out to motherboard manufacturers. This being like 8-bit motherboards back in the day. They are very well known for overclocking motherboards. I had an 8-bit BH6 and a BE6 motherboard, if anyone remembers what that was, but it was a Celeron 300 megahertz machine processor that you could overclock to 450 megahertz. So it was like 50% like boost on your processor was like insane. And the bang for the buck was off the chart. So in gaming back then, it was always about bang for the buck. It was always about how do you overclock the computer? How do you tweak it? How do you get a little extra cooling? And even today, you see people water cool and fans. It's the full thing now. I mean, everyone knows it and so forth. But I remember going to Micro Center and just looking up on the shelf, and I'm like, B105, T3000, Z521A. Like, and I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to buy a motherboard for gaming if I can't even understand it? So for me, I was like, why can't it just be Fatality motherboards? Like, why can't it just be Fatality? I make 3 versions, make like like entry level, pro, and champion level, and just sell that. Like, so I gave that to my business team as kind of like a goal to go out and find. And I was like, it just, for me, it's like, it's too difficult to buy things. Like, there's no gaming brand like that exists for all of esports and gaming. You have all these companies that make all these different things. And basically that's what sparked the interest to work with Abit. Abit took a big chance on us. And then obviously it worked out. We did an event at the Great Wall of China. We traveled all around, doing promotions all over Asia. Eventually Abit we separated after our contract, and eventually started working with ASRock for the last 8-10 years. And yeah, basically, we created that kind of market. And you see Republic of the Gamer now, you see MSI Gaming, you see all these different companies that have now copied kind of what I created back then. But
it's so funny how you talk about it, right? And so let me go back to, the beginning of our discussion when you talk about your ambition and how hard you trained. Like that to me is like the sports athlete, right? Like you got to give it all to be the best. You want to be the best, so you really got to put in the hours. So now you're talking about branding, and the way you talk about it is so natural in a way. Like where did you get your business acumen? Because you said it was just stuff that makes sense to you. Like, is it really just that, or did you pursue any other education on this, or was it really just like, okay, here's a need, like I need this, I'm a pro gamer, so I'm going to develop something to solve my own problem?
Well, I think it was just like, being sponsored early in my career, working with companies, and then just seeing like kind of the shadiness of the business, kind of sparked my interest. Like, well, if they're not going to let me be a part of it in a big way, and I think I'm adding a lot of value back then too, I don't want to give away my value for free. So I kind of understood my worth, I guess, to some degree. I understood like, I'm the one that's freaking putting all the work in. I'm the one that's training. I'm the one that's winning the tournament. Like, I want to be rewarded, not just as like when I looked at sponsorships back then, and even, I think just in general, like a sponsorship is so temporary, and whereas if I create the Fatality brand, it's a lasting brand I can have for the rest of my life, and I knew I was doing stuff before everyone else. Like I knew that I was like aha moment, like I was creating something authentic, that was true to the passion to play games, and I still, even today, as turning 40 next year, I still love playing games, like I don't have a lack desire of playing games. I love playing it. I play every day, play on PC. Obviously I have a pretty awesome setup here, play on mobile. I play everything. But my dad did own a baseball card shop when I was a kid. So I understood I ran the baseball card shop with my dad as a kid. My dad owned a pool hall at one point. So I ran the pool hall with him. I remember him like leaving for golf tournaments, and I was like 11 years old, like running the pool hall. So I had a very unique lifestyle as a young kid. Like I wonder how much my dad really loved me sometimes. Like he trusted me a lot, and I loved it because it helped me grow so fast. So I was definitely the oldest, youngest kid there. At all times. Like even at pool hall, I'm like 11. My friends were like 19 or 20. They're like 8 or 9 years older than me all the time. And so all the people I hanged out with were always like massively more mature. They, and I just enjoyed I enjoyed my life as a young kid a lot with my dad and with my family in general. But I learned a lot of like business things like that, going to Sam's and buying, buying a bunch of Coke or whatever and put it in the fridge and then sell the Coke for, 5X, like learning that business sense, I guess, like I learned that at a young age. So, when I saw making mouse pads, like, well, I just have to put the money down and buy it, and then I'll eventually sell it. How many LAN parties do I go to every year? I can just, I started carrying like a duffel bag of mouse pads to LAN parties. And I was like, hey guys, I have 50 mouse pads. If anybody wants one, just come over to me. I'm selling for $20. And like, I'm at my computer, like playing at the LAN party, and people was like, hey, Fatality, can I buy a mouse pad? Oh yeah, give me 1 second. I'm finishing the game. Then I finished the game, and then $20, like $20. And hey, nice to meet you, and he's like, oh, can you sign it? I'm like, okay, like I'll sign it. Like it was a really cool, like ambitious, like hustling mentality back then. And it was a lot of fun. It was definitely I went to card shows with my dad as a kid too. So I understood like building up shop and like having like kind of a, that kind of opportunity to make money.
So now we're really gonna fast forward to more or less today, right? And you're still an entrepreneur, and you mentioned ReadyUp. We're gonna talk about that in a second. But how do you then, with all of your background and all the experience, how do you look at esports right now? Like, if you would like, how do you explain esports to people that probably do not know really what it is, right? Like, with your background, what changed, and what is the industry for you?
You know, it's such an interesting question that you asked. Like, and this, like, I've been asked, you know, what is esports for, over 20 years, right? Like, so, and it's always interesting because like trying to explain to people and so forth, and it's not so recently where you saw like Booga win the $3 million, and you see like the Ninja getting and Shroud getting their deals and so forth, and like you're like, whoa, like there's so much money in this, like these guys are getting huge contracts, and so everyone gets a little interested and creates more buzz. You know, obviously I was that guy back in the mid 2000s, but you know getting into esports back then, explaining esports was always tough. But I that's kind of, I think that's one of the things I did very well. Was from like, 1999 till like, well past 2010, 2012, 2015. Like, I traveled the world and I told everyone about esports and how it's blowing up and how, it's competition. I always drew parallels between traditional sports and esports. Esports there's a lot of sports. There's sports games, there's RTS games, there's MOBA games, there's first person shooters. There's all these different types of sports in esports or different esports games. But I think one of the toughest questions I always got asked is, how do I get into esports? And that's the toughest question. And that's kind of what sparked ReadyUp. Was, people don't know where to go and to get the information they want to get unless they want to scour the internet and dive into, a million web pages to find out where the next tournament is, or when's the next qualifier, or how can I watch the next big tournament. And so, for me, like, I want to make esports easier and more attainable by the mainstream. And that's why, I've been building ReadyUp.
So give me the elevator pitch for ReadyUp then.
Yeah, so ReadyUp, currently we're a B2B platform that we help people that have their own operated networks, and they want their audience to be engaged in esports and be more involved. So we have tools like add to calendar, sync to calendar features where you can sync like the events. Like, so the Esports Observer has the esports section, right? And that section would, say, oh, there's the CSGO Intel Extreme Masters coming up. Oh, the Worlds is coming up. Well, you can quickly add those events to the calendar, but you can do even a layer deeper, like, oh, maybe you're only interested in, FlyQuest and Cloud9 or whatever, Team Liquid and so on. You could actually follow only their actual matches. So, so when you pull up your phone and look at your calendar, you're like, oh, Team Liquid's playing at 7 p.m. Oh, and then where's all the information? Oh, there's a watch now. Oh, merchandise. Oh, whatever the call to actions are. And so we try to make it easier for people that already own their communities, engage with their audience more and make them more engaged in the things that we're already doing. I can say, like, for me, like, I'm a fan of a lot of games. Like, I played Diablo, and like people wouldn't think, oh, how to play Diablo? No way. Like, but like I don't know why I got into it. Diablo 3 like kind of got me, because like back when my playing days, I couldn't play those games because it would take away from my training. And now that I'm like not in the training mode anymore, like trying to be world champion at every game, like at the games I was back then, I have more free time. It's like, oh, I want to see what they were so excited about, right? I want to see what they love, because I like to understand everyone's point of view and try to get it. So like, season 22 is coming up right now, but we don't know when it is, and no one really knows when it is. But like, but the thing is, when that event takes place, if it could be added to my calendar and like, oh, Diablo 3 season 22 is starting in 10 days or whatever deal is, then I can start calling my friends like, hey, make sure you guys block off the weekend. We're going to grind a little bit of Diablo 3 season 22 at the beginning and have some fun with it. An Overwatch League starts, like the new season starts. Like, I don't like coming into things late. Like, if a new game launches, like when Valorant launched, I don't want to be playing the game a week or 2 weeks late, and then I'm playing catch up to everyone that's already been playing the game. It's no fun, because you're getting your butt kicked for a while, and you got to catch up on hours. So you got to put more time in, more hours in to catch up on the meta of how the game is played. So for me, ReadyUp we allow you to stay more connected to all the things going on in gaming and in esports, and knowing when those events are taking place. And an event to us is very broad. It's when a new season starts, when a tournament is happening, when a qualifier is happening, when a major tournament is going to happen. You can watch, tune in. It could be even a new item dropped in the game, like a new skin or whatnot. So we really try to capture all of the events that are going on in gaming esports, and our goal is to give it to our partners, like the Esports Observer. And we're also working with NACE, who has a relationship with over 200 colleges across the U.S. We also work with ESL. So we are really trying to help connect the mainstream, or the people that are just right on the edge of being like hardcore, but like they need that little help. And I think ReadyUp can be like that mainstream help to connect everyone and make esports stronger.
So Roderick gave me a tour like recently on the platform, and
Yeah.
I was really thinking about, why did nobody come up with a sync function? And I know it sounds so basic, but like there's nothing, and I live by my calendar, right? If it's not on my calendar, like I'm not going to do it. So, and it's so funny that you mentioned Diablo 3, because I started playing, I think 2.5 or 3 weeks ago, and the game got me hooked. Like whenever I have really time, or, after lunch or so, I'm just going to do one rift. Let's play, it's 10 minutes, whatever. Let's quickly do this. Yeah. But I totally get the point. And I think you mentioned this as well. So you're connecting e-commerce with it, right? Which means if there's an event, I can buy a ticket, I can go and buy merchandise. So but still it's distributed. So it's not on a central platform, but it's widgetized. You see, I'm this is a commercial for your company now.
No, you're doing very good.
How did I do? Like you can wire me the money.
You've been talking to us a lot.
You can wire me all the money, man. No, like
buy nerd drink.
I kind of get the idea though. Look, I can go on for hours, man. I still have a billion questions for you. What I really want to ask you is like, what's next for you? Does ReadyUp now, Fatality brand, like what's next for that? Like, so what's next for your life really in esports?
Yeah. So, obviously, I'm turning 40 this next year, so it's going to be a different life going forward, I think. But doing ReadyUp has been kind of like my second, it's like, I've done Fatality. I still want to do Fatality. I plan on holding some events later this year in a game called Diabolical. It's an arena first-person shooter game. It's pretty fun. One of my old competitors I used to play against back in the day made the game too good. So I'm planning on trying to support that community a little bit with doing Fatality events. And I still want to make mouse pads. I still want to work with different manufacturers that want to get into gaming space. So I still want to do Fatality, of course. But ReadyUp is kind of like my other play. And it's more of a all of us play, where like ReadyUp is like I can work with almost anyone and help them engage with their audience, help them be more connected. And this is just, I've been working on the ReadyUp concept idea it's been almost 10 years now. And it wasn't until 3 years ago I met Roderick, and he was able to help me do the startup, and raise the money and get all these partners on board. I mean, that was the beauty of Roderick, was that he actually had the connections that I didn't really have or know how to use like he does. And that's why it kind of made a perfect match. But, to kind of like, inspirations when I was younger was LANparty.com. I'm not sure if you remember LANparty.com, but it would be like this website that's listed like when like physical events were coming up across the US, right? Or even the world. But like, I just remember there was no event in Kansas City. So that's why I started holding Fatality LAN parties in Kansas City. Actually, our first LAN party is called KC Gathering. And so that's kind of what inspired me to create ReadyUp, and obviously the sync the calendar thing. I just want to make it easier and more accessible to people. And these are the things that I've already went through and that I'm going through. Like I'm going through these things where like I want to do more of these things. I want to hang out with my friends more. I want to plan when to hang out with my friends online. And I think ReadyUp kind of like helps curate all that.
I saw you at the NHL All-Stars Challenge that was held in St. Louis. You're still a sports fan.
Oh yeah.
What do you think can sports learn from esports?
Well, you're already seeing like the players take advantage of the connecting with their fan base through social media and so forth. And they were already kind of doing that. But like, I think through gaming, it's a more of a social common ground for a lot of these athletes to connect with their audience. I've been playing with the Cole Irvin, Swervin Irvin from the Philadelphia Phillies, as the pitcher. I think we're actually playing PUBG tonight. But I think they're I like what they're doing. I think they should, I think the team should have more of an esports presence, and they are doing it. I just don't know the scale of how much involved it is and so forth. But there's definitely a tie-in to these organizations that already exist, and they encompass their city. And it seems like it's inevitable to create kind of like an esports attachment to the the bigger org, right? So I feel like some teams are already doing it. I don't really I can't really say that it's totally mainstream. Like I'm in esports and gaming, and I still don't know it to 100%. So that means who knows it that out in the street, like that like I'm a hardcore Kansas City Chiefs fan. I'm from Kansas City, grew up by Arrowhead Stadium as a kid. Obviously I live in Las Vegas now, and I got the Raiders here, so I got like a dilemma. But I'm still a Chiefs fan, don't worry. But these franchises are so amazing, and you feel like there should be a Kansas City Chiefs should have an esports division, and if it's just playing Madden football, then keep it in your sport and just make it cater to it. So like if football's sport, like I always feel like I don't play sports in video games that much because I like actually playing the sport. Like yeah. I don't see the point like like as other people do. Like when I play like my like other games, I can't do that in real life, really. Yes. I mean, like there's the things I'm doing in the game are not realistic, most of the time. Casting spells or whatever I'm doing in the games, like shooting, I mean, I guess you could shoot homing rocket missiles, but like, I mean, I'm doing it at a very rapid pace. I'm getting a lot of enjoyment playing my games. But what I was trying to get back to my point of this is that FIFA should be working with all MLS teams, all soccer side of things. Madden football or some kind of football should be working with NFL and should be doing stuff to cater to that, because I think that's like you have those fans that are not into playing the sport, but maybe they're into playing the game. And then obviously when they play the game, there could be a, okay, if you win this event, obviously you're our number one player, but then you're working with the players and playing against the players. I don't know. I think there should be a more tie-in to the sports games and the major leagues sports. So
yeah, that's what happens in Germany. So you look at all the Bundesliga clubs, like all of them have their FIFA teams now, and they're replicating that. I got to throw in a really shameless plug right here. I just yesterday did a webinar with Nielsen, and Nielsen actually classified esports, or like they classified it into gaming, esports, and virtual sports. So what you just discussed, the sports simulation games, like they look at them separately, because it's what you said. It's a kind of, it's a kind of different, slightly different audience sometimes that watches these kind of things. So they look at it very differently. So last question really, and that is a piece of advice. Like if you would give anyone a piece of advice, what was the best one you got? Can be life, can be business. What's your best advice for people?
Well, I think the biggest one I always tell is like, I mean, if a younger audience was watching this, like say like, if you're a parent, maybe share this with your kids, but like, I would say, if they listen to you, but like as a kid, you have the most opportunity to do whatever you want to do in life because you have no responsibilities. Typically you have no responsibilities. You don't have to provide shelter, you don't have to provide food and all these things. So when you're a young kid, say you're 11, 12, 13-year-old kid, and you're trying to find out what you want to do when you turn 8 to you're 18. And if you want to be in esports and gaming, you have to go all in from 11 to 18 years old, or like, still have a balance. I wouldn't say go all in, because I was very hybrid. I was outdoorsy, playing sports, being healthy, and doing gaming. So I think having balance is very important. But I think kids that are younger and under 18 should realize the opportunity they have to learn at that time of their age and to do things that they're really passionate about. And if gaming and esports is that, I would say just dive into it and go for it. But, that's kind of my best advice to like young kids. Like, I just feel like they when you get to turn 18 and you're trying to decide what you want to do in life from 18 to 22, it gets too difficult, because at that point you've already missed like 3 or 4 years of like really like knowing exactly what you want to do. I played video games like really hardcore from like 15 to 18. And I didn't know. I thought I was going into IT. I thought I was going to school, like that was always my plan. But so obviously I was able to catch a break to some extent and take it to the next level. But I always had a backup plan. Like, if gaming didn't work out, I was going back to school, and I kind of knew what I was going to do in my life already. But I think the biggest advice is for kids, young kids, teenagers, is that take advantage of the opportunity you have at home, enjoy it till you're 18. Then obviously when you go off to school, you can further educate that avenue or, but I would say the last important advice is you have to go for it. You have to go for it. Like that was always my philosophy when I competed is like, I told my dad, I have to go to the tournament and find out if I'm good. I have to go. If I don't go, I will always have it in the back of my mind. I mean, it's like, man, I wonder if I could have done it when I was that age. And the thing is, I don't have regrets, and that's the biggest thing is like, if you think you want to do something, you really want to go for it, give it 1,000%, go for it, and either succeed or fail. And then after that, then you'll be in your position that you're in, and you'll either know, okay, I can keep going down this road, which involves living on a couch and hustling that or whatever the scenario is, or you go the other route and just start your career in life in a different way. So there's definitely a crossroad that will happen, but give it your all and go for it. Go for it at least once. You have to go for it at least once.
Johnathan, thank you very much for making time.
Chris, no, thank you very much, man. I look forward to talking with you again, man.